You walk into a room, everyone's talking, laughing at things that aren't funny, pretending to care about conversations that don't matter. And you feel it immediately. That pressure, that weight in your chest, the voice in your head saying you don't belong here. You've been told you're socially awkward. Maybe you've even told yourself that. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if the problem isn't you? What if you're not broken? You're just built differently. Carl Jung spent his life studying the human psyche, and buried in his work is a truth most people never discover. A truth that changes everything about how you see yourself. You're not socially awkward. You're selectively authentic. And once you understand what that means, you'll never apologize for who you are again. Let's start with what they don't tell you. Society runs on masks. Jung called it the persona, the face you show the world, the version of yourself you've been trained to perform. Most people wear their persona so long they forget it's even there. They become the mask. They laugh when they're supposed to laugh, agree when they're supposed to agree, show interest in things that bore them to death. And they call this normal. They call this social success. But you can't do it, not because you're incapable, but because something inside you rejects it. You've tried. God knows you've tried. You've forced the small talk, pretended to care about weekend plans and office gossip. But it feels like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, painful, exhausting, wrong. And here's what Jung understood that most people don't: that discomfort you feel. It's not a flaw, it's a signal. Your psyche is telling you something. It's saying, this isn't real, this isn't me, this isn't worth my energy. Most people interpret that signal as anxiety, as social incompetence, as something to fix. But Jung saw it differently. He believed some people are wired to prioritize depth over breadth, meaning over performance, authenticity over acceptance. He called these people introverts, but not in the way pop psychology uses the term. Not just someone who likes being alone. Jung's introvert is someone whose energy flows inward, someone who processes the world internally before expressing it externally, someone who can't sustain relationships built on surface-level exchange, not because they lack social skills, but because their psyche demands substance. It demands truth, and when truth is absent, the connection feels hollow. You know this feeling. You've been in conversations where every word feels scripted, where you are talking but not saying anything, where you're surrounded by people but completely alone, and afterwards, you're drained. Not because you're weak, but because you just spent an hour pretending to be someone you're not. That's not social awkwardness. That's your psyche protecting itself. Jung had a concept called individuation. It's the process of becoming who you actually are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society says you should be, but who you are at your core. And individuation requires something most people can't handle. It requires you to drop the mask, to stop performing, to stop seeking validation from people who don't understand you. Most people never individuate. They spend their entire lives chasing external approval, modifying themselves to fit into groups that don't deserve them. And they wonder why they feel empty, why success doesn't feel like success, why achievements don't fill the void, because they've achieved things for the wrong version of themselves. The persona achieved it, the mask achieved it, but the real them, still buried, still waiting, still suffocating under layers of performance. Here's where it gets interesting. You, the person watching this right now, you might be further along the path of individuation than you realize. That social awkwardness you feel, it's not regression, it's progression. Your psyche is rejecting inauthenticity. It's refusing to waste energy on shallow connections. It's demanding something real, and in a world built on pretense, that makes you an outsider. But Jung would tell you this: the outsider is closer to the self than the conformist will ever be. The self in Jungian psychology is your true nature, the totality of who you are, not the edited version, not the socially acceptable version, the real version. And accessing the self requires solitude. It requires withdrawal from the noise. It requires saying no to invitations that drain you. It requires disappointing people who only like the mask anyway. Most people call this antisocial. Jung called it essential. Let me tell you what selective authenticity actually means. It means you don't waste your depth on shallow waters. It means you'd rather have one real conversation than 100 meaningless ones. It means you're not interested in being liked by everyone, only understood by the right ones. And here's the part that will change how you see every social interaction for the rest of your life. The people who call you awkward, they're threatened by you. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your presence exposes their performance. When you refuse to play the game, you remind them that it is a game. When you won't laugh at jokes that aren't funny, you remind them they're laughing at nothing. When you go quiet in meaningless conversations, you remind them they're saying nothing. Your authenticity is a mirror, and most people hate what they see in it. So they label you awkward, weird, antisocial, difficult. But these aren't descriptions. They're defenses. They're ways of dismissing you so they don't have to examine themselves. Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of yourself you've repressed, the parts you've been taught to hide. For most people, the shadow contains their darkness, their anger, their selfishness, their shame. But for people like you, your shadow might contain something different. It might contain your light, your depth, your intensity, your refusal to settle. Society teaches you to repress these things, to dim yourself, to make yourself smaller so others feel comfortable. And you've done it. You've spent years hiding your intelligence so you don't seem arrogant, hiding your intensity so you don't seem intense, hiding your standards so you don't seem judgmental. But here's what happens when you repress your light. You don't just lose your brightness, you lose your energy, your passion, your will to engage with the world. And then people wonder why you're quiet, why you're withdrawn, why you seem awkward. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly alive in a social setting? Not just okay, not just tolerating it, but alive. I'm willing to bet it wasn't at a party or a networking event or some forced social gathering where everyone's pretending. It was probably a one-on-one conversation, late at night, with someone who actually sees you, someone who asks real questions, someone who doesn't need you to perform. In that moment, you weren't awkward at all, were you? You were articulate, engaged, present, yourself. That's selective authenticity. You're not incapable of connection. You're incapable of fake connection, and there's a universe of difference between the two. Jung believed that every person has a limited amount of psychic energy. He called it libido, not sexual energy, life energy. And how you spend that energy determines the quality of your life. Extroverts, in Jung's model, generate energy from external stimulation, people, events, activity. Their libido flows outward and gets replenished by the world. But introverts, your libido flows inward. You generate energy from internal reflection, from solitude, from meaningful engagement with ideas, art, nature, or the few people who truly matter. And when you force yourself into environments that demand constant external output, you're draining a tank that can't be refilled in that environment. That's why social situations exhaust you. Not because you're weak, but because you're spending energy you can't recover in real time. You need to withdraw to recharge, and society punishes you for it, calls you antisocial, calls you cold, calls you awkward. But Jung would say you're just being true to your energetic nature. Here's the trap most people fall into. They try to fix themselves. They read books on charisma, watch videos on social skills, force themselves into social situations to practice. And some of it works, You can learn to perform better. You can memorize conversation techniques. You can fake extroversion for short periods. But it's still performance. It's still the persona. And eventually, it collapses because you can't sustain a mask forever. Jung warned about this. He said that identifying too strongly with a persona leads to psychological fragmentation. You start to lose touch with who you actually are. You become a collection of responses, a social algorithm, functional on the outside, empty on the inside. And then one day you wake up and realize you've spent years becoming someone you don't even like. So what's the alternative? Do you just give up on society? Become a hermit? No. Jung's answer was more nuanced. He believed in integration, not rejection. You don't destroy the persona. You master it. You learn to use it consciously, as a tool, not an identity. You can engage socially when it serves you. You can be charming when the situation calls for it. You can navigate shallow waters when necessary. But you don't live there. You don't build your life there. You don't derive your worth from how well you perform there. You become what Jung called the individuated person, someone who can move between worlds, the external and the internal, the social and the solitary, the mask and the self, but always with awareness, always knowing which is which. Let me tell you what happens when you embrace selective authenticity. First, you stop apologizing. You stop saying sorry for leaving events early, for declining invitations, for being quiet in group settings, for needing time alone. You recognize these aren't failures, they're boundaries, and boundaries are sacred. Second, you stop forcing connections. You let relationships form organically. You wait for people who operate at your frequency, and when you find them, you invest deeply. Because one authentic relationship is worth 1,000 superficial ones. Third, you reclaim your energy. You stop spending it on people and situations that don't replenish you. You become selfish with your attention, protective of your solitude, intentional about your presence. And paradoxically, you become more magnetic, because people can feel the difference between someone who's performing and someone who's present, between someone who needs approval and someone who doesn't, between someone who's awkward and someone who's selective. Jung had a student named Marie-Louise von Franz. She spent decades studying his work, and she said something that should be carved into stone. The person who looks outward dreams. The person who looks inward awakens. Most people are dreaming, walking through life asleep, reacting instead of responding, performing instead of being, seeking validation instead of truth. But you're waking up. And the first stage of awakening is always uncomfortable, because you start to see through the illusions, the social games, the performances, the masks. And you can't unsee them. You can't go back to pretending. You can't force yourself to care about things that don't matter. This is the loneliness of awakening. Jung called it the dark night of the soul. The period where you've outgrown your old self but haven't fully become your new self. You're between worlds, too aware to fit in, not yet strong enough to stand completely alone. This is where you are right now. And I need you to understand something. This phase doesn't last forever, but you can't skip it. Here's what most people don't tell you about individuation. It's not a destination, it's a practice. Every day you choose, do I wear the mask or do I show my face? Do I perform or do I participate? Do I seek approval or do I seek truth? And the more you choose authenticity, the easier it becomes, not because people accept you more, but because you need their acceptance less. You start to build an internal foundation, a sense of self that doesn't depend on external validation. Jung called this the self with a capital S, your true center, your psychological home base, the part of you that exists independent of circumstance, and when you're rooted in the self. social awkwardness disappears, not because you become more socially skilled, but because you stop judging yourself through a social lens. You stop seeing quiet as failure. You stop seeing solitude as loneliness. You stop seeing authenticity as awkwardness. You just are. And people either get it or they don't. And both outcomes are fine. Let me give you a framework. Jung divided social interaction into 4 functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition. Most people rely heavily on 1 or 2. The person you call socially successful is usually dominant in sensation and feeling. They read the room easily, pick up on social cues, adjust their behavior in real time. But you're probably dominant in thinking and intuition. You process conversations deeply. You see patterns. You sense underlying meanings. You're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And that makes you seem slow, awkward, out of sync. But you're not slow, you're thorough. You're not awkward, you're deliberate. You're not out of sync. You're operating on a different frequency. And the tragedy is that you've been judging yourself by their metrics, trying to win a game you were never meant to play. Here's a question that will change everything. What if you stopped trying to fix your social awkwardness and started designing a life that doesn't require you to perform? What if you chose work that allows for depth over breadth, relationships that prioritize quality over quantity, environments that reward authenticity over performance? What if you stopped trying to fit into their world and started building your own? This is what Jung meant by individuation, not adapting to the collective, but differentiating from it, becoming a sovereign individual, someone who doesn't need the crowd's permission to exist. And here's what happens when you do this. You attract different people, people who've also walked this path, people who understand the cost of authenticity, people who don't need you to perform because they're not performing either. These are your people, not the ones at the party, not the ones in the group chat, the ones who find you when you stop looking, the ones who recognize you because they recognize themselves in you. Jung talked about synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, moments when the external world mirrors your internal state. And I promise you this, when you commit to selective authenticity, synchronicities will increase. You'll meet the right people at the right time. Opportunities will appear that align with your true self. Doors will open that you didn't even know existed. Not because the universe rewards you, but because you've stopped broadcasting the wrong signal. You've stopped attracting people and situations that match your persona and started attracting what matches yourself. This is the magic of authenticity. It's a filter. It repels what doesn't serve you and attracts what does. But you have to be patient because the right connections are rare and they take time to find. Let's talk about what you're really afraid of. You're not afraid of being awkward. You're afraid of being alone. You're afraid that if you stop performing, if you stop trying to fit in, if you stop forcing connections, you'll end up isolated, unwanted, forgotten. And I'm not going to lie to you. There will be periods of loneliness, deep, heavy loneliness. Jung went through it. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious, a period where he withdrew from society almost completely, where he questioned everything, where he felt utterly alone. But here's what he discovered on the other side. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the pain of being disconnected. Solitude is the peace of being connected to yourself. And when you learn to transform loneliness into solitude, you become unbreakable because you're no longer dependent on others for your sense of wholeness. You carry it within you. I want you to imagine something. 5 years from now, you've fully embraced selective authenticity. You've stopped forcing yourself into situations that drain you. You've stopped apologizing for who you are. You've built a small circle of people who actually understand you. And you've designed a life that doesn't require you to wear a mask. How does that feel? Lonely or free? I'm betting on free, because that's what authenticity gives you. not popularity, not approval. Freedom, the freedom to exist as you actually are. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to pursue depth instead of breadth. The freedom to finally breathe. Now let me tell you something Jung discovered that changed his entire understanding of human psychology. He found that the people who struggled most with social situations were often the ones carrying the greatest psychological gifts, not despite their sensitivity, but because of it. You see, the qualities that make you feel awkward in shallow settings are the exact qualities that allow you to perceive what others miss. Your inability to engage in meaningless small talk, that's because you're wired to detect deeper currents of meaning. Your discomfort in large groups, that's because you're picking up on the collective emotional field in ways others can't. Your exhaustion after social events, that's because you're processing layers of information most people don't even register. Jung called people like you the wounded healers, not because you're broken, but because your sensitivity to inauthenticity is what qualifies you to recognize truth. The same radar that makes parties unbearable is what allows you to create profound art, deep philosophy, meaningful relationships, transformative work. You're not malfunctioning, you're calibrated differently. And the world desperately needs what you're calibrated to detect. Think about the people throughout history who've changed the world. The artists, the philosophers, the inventors, the visionaries. How many of them were described as socially awkward in their time? Einstein, Tesla, Van Gogh, Emily Dickinson, Jung himself. They weren't broken, they were selectively authentic. They couldn't waste their energy on performances because they had something real to create, something true to express, something important to discover. And their social awkwardness wasn't a bug, it was a feature, a protective mechanism that kept them focused on what mattered. You're in good company, the awkward ones, the selective ones, the ones who couldn't pretend even when pretending would have made life easier. These are your ancestors, your lineage, your tribe. Jung spent years analyzing fairy tales and myths, and he found a pattern that appears across every culture. The hero's journey always begins with separation. The hero must leave the village, leave the familiar, leave the comfortable, and venture into the unknown alone. This isn't punishment, it's initiation. Because you can't discover who you truly are while surrounded by people who only know your mask. You have to separate, withdraw, face yourself in solitude. And this is terrifying, because solitude forces you to confront everything you've been avoiding. Your fears, your inadequacies, your unfulfilled potential, the gap between who you are and who you could be. But here's what Jung understood: this confrontation is necessary. You have to meet your shadow, integrate your repressed qualities, reclaim the parts of yourself you've disowned. And you can't do this at a party. You can't do this in constant company. You can't do this while performing. You have to be alone. And that's not a failure. That's the journey. Let me tell you what happens when you complete this phase. When you've spent enough time in solitude, when you've integrated your shadow, when you've built a relationship with yourself, you return to society transformed, not more socially skilled, but more internally grounded. And from that groundedness, everything changes. You enter social situations without neediness, without the desperate hunger for validation, without the fear of rejection, because you're already whole. You're not going there to get something, you're going there to share something. And people feel this shift immediately. It's the difference between a beggar and a king. The beggar needs the crowd. The king graces the crowd with his presence. Same person, same social situation, completely different energy. Jung wrote about this phenomenon in his book on psychological types. He said that the introverted person who completes individuation becomes more influential than 1,000 extroverts, not through volume, but through substance, not through performance. but through presence. Because they're no longer broadcasting need, they're radiating wholeness. And wholeness is magnetic. It draws people in without effort. It commands respect without demand. It creates impact without force. This is the power of selective authenticity. You're not trying to connect with everyone. So when you do connect, it's profound. You're not trying to impress anyone. So when you speak, people listen. You're not performing for approval, so your presence carries weight. But here's what you need to understand. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. Jung's own individuation process took decades. There were years where he questioned his sanity, years where he felt completely isolated, years where he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake by choosing authenticity over acceptance. And then, gradually, things shifted. The right people appeared, the right opportunities emerged. His work found its audience, not the masses, but the ones who were ready for depth. And that made all the difference. Because he wasn't trying to be everything to everyone. He was being something specific to someone specific. And so are you. You're not meant to resonate with the crowd. You're meant to resonate deeply with the few who are ready for what you carry. Think about a tuning fork. It only responds to its specific frequency. You can surround it with noise, chaos, 1,000 different sounds. But it only vibrates when it encounters its match. That's you. You're not broken because you don't vibrate to every frequency. You're precisely calibrated. And when you encounter your frequency, when you meet someone who operates at your depth, the resonance is unmistakable, immediate, profound. This is why forcing yourself into incompatible social situations is so exhausting. You're trying to vibrate to the wrong frequency, and it goes against your nature. But when you honor your calibration, when you wait for the right frequency, connection becomes effortless. Jung spent his final years in a tower he built himself, by a lake, away from the noise, and people thought he'd become a recluse, that he'd given up on society. But that wasn't it at all. He'd simply completed his individuation. He no longer needed external validation. He'd found what he was looking for, not out there, in here. And from that place of internal wholeness, he produced his most profound work. He connected with people more deeply than ever, not because he performed better, but because he stopped performing altogether. This is the paradox of selective authenticity. The less you try to connect with everyone, the more deeply you connect with the right ones. The less you try to be liked, the more you're loved by those who matter. The less you perform, the more powerful your presence becomes. So here's what I want you to do. Stop calling it social awkwardness. Stop treating it like a disorder. Stop trying to fix something that isn't broken. You're not socially awkward. You're selectively authentic. And that's not a weakness. It's a superpower. It's a filter that protects you from wasting your life on shallow connections. It's a compass that points you toward depth. It's a gift that most people will never understand. And that's okay, because you're not here to be understood by most people. You're here to find the few who speak your language, to build the life that honors your nature, to become who you actually are, not who they want you to be. This is your path. Jung walked it. Every individuated person in history has walked it. And now it's your turn. So stop apologizing. Stop hiding. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You're not awkward. You're awake. And the world needs more people who are brave enough to stay that way. One final thought. Jung believed that every person has a destiny. Not in a mystical sense, but a psychological one. A unique configuration of traits, gifts, and purpose that's yours alone to fulfill. And the process of individuation is about aligning with that destiny, stripping away everything that isn't you, the expectations, the conditioning, the masks, until what remains is pure essence, your essence. And when you live from that essence, social awkwardness becomes irrelevant, because you're no longer trying to be someone you're not. You're simply being, and being is always enough. Welcome to the journey. It won't be easy, but it will be real. And in the end, that's all that matters.